and I appreciate everybody who watches this. This is a vertical live, so this is going to be touching a different fan base that is out there. So that's why we're putting this up. And if you're catching this from the beginning, you're going to see this introduction. Right now, there's really nobody in here. Christine Fortunato, hello. Thank you for stopping in. Thank you for coming in. I appreciate you. However, we are going to be. This is part of my series here, exposing the framing of Ty Tucker, and we are going to be watching today, listening, watching, whatever you want to call it, to the deposition of Paula Belmonte. For those of you not familiar with this case, Tyrone Tucker is a man who is wrongfully accused of a robbery gone wrong. He is currently incarcerated in Florida. He is going to be going on trial on September 6th. The state of Florida is wrongfully taking him to trial. There's a lot to this case. There's a lot of coverage on this channel that you need to look into to verify what I'm saying. But basically, there was a robbery at a place called the Treehouse. It was a known drug place. There were two individuals involved in the robbery. And the state is alleging Ty Tucker was one of those two individuals. However, they have the two individuals in custody because the state has had the true individual that was next to Rory Wilson, who is the other individual that was involved in this, is testifying in the case, and he is implicating Ty Tucker. The state knows that this individual is lying. They're aware that this individual has filed various motions saying that his story was not true. There's been several rogue detectives and police officers, one being Penny Phelps. We're going to hear from her subsequently soon. And she was fired. She was the captain of the police who led the investigation, and she essentially concocted the story that Ty Tucker was involved. And it was based off of a Facebook photo that she saw of Ty Tucker and the fact that Ty Tucker went to a cell phone store 3 days after this happened. And Ty was white. This other individual was black. And they believed that because they were told there was a white and a black male that was involved in the robbery, they believe Ty Tucker was that guy. The police moved forward with that belief, and they ended up getting stuck in a rut. They ended up getting stuck with a story, and then evidence to the contrary began to come in. Instead of admitting they were wrong, Captain Penny Phelps decided Ty Tucker might make a good witness that she could flip, give a sweetheart deal to, and use him to implicate the other two. So she went forward with attempting to get Ty Tucker arrested for the crime, which she did. She successfully arrested him. She got John Travis Johnson, the individual that actually did this, to turn on Ty Tucker by basically saying, hey, I have proof you were there. Here's video. And there is video proof that John Travis Johnson's truck was there, that he was physically there. And she basically said, either we're going to prosecute you and Rory, or you give us Ty with her. And that he went ahead and said, okay, Ty Tucker was involved, changed his story, and basically regurgitated the story that Captain Phelps gave him. It's a crazy case. It's hard to wrap your head around. But if you go into all of this, these depositions, the videos on freetytucker.com, all support what I'm telling you. But these depositions that I'm about to share with you, which came out of the 7-month investigation or 7-year investigation that Ty's attorneys, that the internal affairs of the Monroe County Sheriff's Department conducted, that there were several lawsuits that have emanated out of this case. All of that is where these are coming from. The discovery in that case. All of this is public record. All of this you can go and find. But I'm bringing it to you because what's going to be going on in that courtroom, what went on in the courtroom in January, what's going to happen in September is not going to tell the whole story. And you need to know the whole story. That jury deserves to know the whole story. There deserves to be questions as to why the lead detective is being left out. The police captain who has acted like a lead detective is being left out and hidden from the jury. There was a prosecutor that was fired and suspended for 2 years, had her law license suspended for 2 years because of her actions in this case. And the fact that there is no evidence, there's no DNA evidence, there's no eyewitness testimony. All of the eyewitnesses say Ty Tucker was not involved. Their DNA, there's no DNA link. The state has absolutely, this deposition that you're going to hear was misused by the state in the last trial to attempt to suggest that Ty Tucker told Paula Belmonte about blood being on a knife, and the state asserted that there was no way Ty Tucker could have known that other than having been at the scene and have committed the crime, which is not true, because he was taken into custody, interrogated for hours, and then released. And it is in that interrogation that he found out that the blood was on a knife, because the state basically, the Captain Phelps basically told him, we have the knife that was used. We believe your DNA is on it. And he said, my DNA is not on it. It's impossible. Test it. It will never come back. And in fact, they did test it and it didn't come back. But it didn't stop the state from misrepresenting this. And also on top of that, because Ty Tucker cannot introduce his own statement and does the only way a police statement can come in a trial is if there is if it for impeachment purposes, if Ty Tucker testifies, the state can cross-examine him on it, but he can't introduce it himself. And they waited until closing arguments to make this argument. And even Vinnie Politan had a problem with it. Even the pro-prosecution based court TV gang said, this is egregious. This is terrible. This is not how the justice system is supposed to work. Because there's one other part I didn't tell you all. He fired his attorneys this time last year, and he went ahead and proceeded forward as a pro se defendant and went forward and tried the case himself in January. Now, the state is working very hard to keep all of the things out that he brought in the last case, because a new judge got assigned to the case. This judge promptly revoked Ty Tucker's bond, has restricted him from getting access to the things he needs to prepare his case, has restricted him from getting access to an exculpatory witness who says Ty Tucker, he saw the second guy and it was not Ty Tucker, and they are attempting to hide this witness. It is a very, 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 very dirty, very, very, very bad case. Anyways, I'm going to let the depositions and the evidence speak for themselves. I'm going to let you go to Free Franklin Tucker, which is a YouTube site on here where all the discovery is posted. Go in, and I'm going to also continue to present to you pieces of evidence. I'm going to present to you statements of witnesses, private investigation statements that are all going to prove that Ty Tucker had nothing to do with this, that there might even be others that were involved, which we will never know. But because the police failed to investigate this properly, they got tunnel vision and they went after a homeless man that they wanted to pin this on for some reason, which we don't know. We don't know why, but we do know, there is one thing we do know that has come out, is that Ty Tucker was known by the Monroe County Sheriff's Department. He was known as somewhat of a troublemaker, asserting his rights in a park for homeless people to be able to sleep there on benches. So he was somewhat known in the area. But this whole thing has a lot to do with some really underhanded and dirty stuff. But anyways, with that said, that's the introduction I want to give you. Jump in here. We're going to jump in here to this deposition and start listening. So it's about 2 hours long. And like I said, we're going to be continuing to broadcast these depositions read courtesy of AI. So listen up. This is Paula Belmonte. She is a victim who was there present that night at the treehouse when this whole thing went down. She's going to tell you what her perspective under questioning, first from prosecutor Christine Poist. Then she's going to be questioned by John Travis Johnson's attorneys, Rory Wilson's attorney, and then Ty Tucker's attorney. And I want you to listen closely to the cross-examinations, because inside the cross-examinations, you're going to hear the theories of the case. You're going to hear information that these attorneys are aware of, that the public isn't aware of, and you're going to hear how this develops, and you're going to get to hear her response to those questions. So without further ado, let's jump on in.
The court reporter, we are on the video record. Today is the 28th day of September, 2020. The time is 10:12 a.m. We are at the Freeman Justice Center, courtroom at 302 Fleming Street, Key West, Florida, for the purpose of taking the video deposition to perpetuate the testimony of Paula Belmonte, being taken by the state in case number 2017 CF 841K. The court reporter is Suex and the videographer is Oslenberg, both of U.S. Legal support. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving in this cause will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? The witness, yes, ma'am. Thereupon, Paula Belmonte, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Mr. Ballarotto, counsel, this is Jerry Ballarotto, for everybody that can't see me. I represent Ty Tucker. I just want to make the record clear as to what we're doing today. We had a motion by the state to do this deposition to preserve testimony and no one objected. So, the way I understand it, that the state is, if I say anything that's not correct, please correct me, but the state is calling the witness and therefore, the state will do the direct, will do one complete direct. After that, from what I understand, there will be a cross-examination by counsel for Mr. Wilson based on, Ms. Poist, Mr. Johnson. Mr. Ballarotto, oh, Mr. Johnson first. Okay. Mr. Johnson first, and then when he's completed, there will be a redirect with regard to only the cross of Mr. Johnson. And then, the next cross will be conducted without another direct. We're only going to have one direct, is that right? Ms. Poist, yes. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. So then the cross-examination will be conducted by Mr. Wilson's counsel and there will be a redirect solely on the testimony. And the same thing when we get to Mr. Tucker who will be the final one. So I don't know how exactly to handle, how you want to handle potential objections, whether there's going to be objections to some of the testimony that may be admissible in one of the cases, but not necessarily admissible in the other case. For example, and I don't know exactly what you're going to put in, but there may be a hearsay exception or a Furman issue that may apply with for one defendant and not with another defendant. So I would just like to say that, on behalf of Mr. Tucker, we would reserve our right to object to any of the direct testimony that does not apply to Mr. Tucker. In addition, I think, and we all recognize that there are 3 separate trials. So, for example, with regard to Mr. Tucker's trial, when he's on trial, they've all been separated. When he's on trial, none of the other 2 counsels for either Mr. Wilson or Mr. Johnson will be participating in that trial. So anything that happens during the course of their cross-examination does not come into, automatically, Mr. Tucker's trial because they're not participating in the trial, and vice versa. So if any of those issues need to be covered in any trial, they're going to have to be recovered on cross-examination by counsel for the defendant. Do we all agree that that's, Ms. Poist, yes? The witness, shoot. Sorry. Ms. Poist, are you all right? The witness, okay. Okay. Let's do it. Ms. Poist, Ms. Belmonte, this is Christine Poist from the State Attorney's Office. Do you need to take a break? The witness, no. I was just choking. I need water. Okay. Direct examination, by Ms. Poist, Q. Can you please state your name and spell it for the court reporter? Mr. Levy, well, before we start, Ms. Attorney, I just also want to add on the record on behalf of Mr. Johnson, Seth Levy on behalf of Travis Johnson. I'm going to make the same motion as Mr. Ballarotto to reserve our right to object because there's obviously going to be a considerable amount of testimony that's not going to be relevant in any way, shape or form to Mr. Johnson's case. There's going to be group issues that come up, and there's going to be hearsay issues that come up. So, in light of that, I think most of the testimony that's going to come out is going to be irrelevant to Mr. Johnson's case. So, that being said, rather than just sitting here and objecting to every single question that's asked, I'm just going to reserve my right that when we go back through, trying to piece together what portions of the direct are relevant to the prosecution against Mr. Johnson, that we'll raise them at a later time. Mr. Ballarotto, is that agreeable to the state? Ms. Poist, yes. Ms. Gomez-Malata? Ms. Gomez-Malata, I was going to say, Anna Gomez-Malata on behalf of Rory Wilson, we would also eventually move to redact portions that do not pertain to our trial, these trials are separate. Is that agreeable to the state? Ms. Poist, so the only thing I would note is, if there is an issue with the form of a question, because I will not be able to go back and be able to correct that later, then that objection does need to be made now to the extent it needs to be made. Mr. Ballarotto, I understand. So what you're saying is that objections to the form of questions, we need to raise that. If it's an objection to the form of a question, we should raise that so you can correct that. Ms. Poist, correct. Mr. Ballarotto, but if it's an objection to relevance or even hearsay or admissibility, we can deal with that later. Ms. Gomez Malata, all right. Ms. Poist, we can try, yes. Mr. Ballarotto, is that all right? Ms. Poist, yes. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. Ms. Gomez Malata, what if we run into an issue where it has to be resolved right then? Is Judge Jones in the courthouse? Ms. Poist, he is not present in the courtroom. I am not sure if he's in the courthouse or not. Ms. Gomez Malata, all right. Ms. Poist, is there anything else that we need to address? Otherwise, I'm going to ask the court reporter to swear the witness in again just for a clean start. Ms. Gomez Malata, I think that's it. Mr. Levy, I think that's all the preliminary matters. The court reporter, would you raise your right hand? Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're giving in this cause will be the whole truth and nothing but the truth? The witness, yes, ma'am. Thereupon, Paula Belmonte, having been first duly sworn, was examined and testified as follows. Direct examination, by Ms. Poist, Q. Good morning. A. Good morning. Q. Can you please state your name for the court reporter? A. Paula Belmonte. Q. How old are you? A. 56. Q. Do you have any medical conditions? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. What medical conditions? A. I have severe COPD with roughly, 22% non-function with asthma and emphysema. Mr. Ballarotto, excuse me, counsel, could we ask the witness to move the microphone a little closer? I'm having a hard time hearing her. Is that possible? The witness, is that better? Mr. Ballarotto, okay. Just, the witness, oh, this one? Mr. Ballarotto, right, yes. The witness, better? Mr. Ballarotto, that's better. It's better if you do that. The witness, okay. Mr. Ballarotto, thank you. The witness, Q. Do you have any? A. Do I have to say it again? Q. Do you have any medical conditions? A. Oh, yes, ma'am. I have severe COPD with severe emphysema, asthma, roughly 22% non-function. Q. Is that one of the reasons that you're not wearing a mask today? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Now, are these medical conditions unrelated to the reason you're testifying here today? A. Can you repeat that? Q. Are they unrelated to the case for which you're testifying? A. Why I'm here today. I'm here today because I'm not expected to be alive when the trial gets here. Is that what you mean? Q. All right. Now, do you take any medications for your medical conditions? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. What medications do you take? A. Oh, my God. I take Combivent. I take albuterol. I take albuterol ipratropium. I take Perfimist. I take Lonhala. I take budesonide. I take Dalaresp. I take blood pressure. I'm on a nebulizer 10 times a day. I think that's it. Q. And have you taken any of those medications today? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. And will those medications impact your ability to recall what happened in this particular case? A. No. Not to recall anything, no. Q. And do they impact your ability to testify here today? A. No, ma'am. Q. Now, I noticed that when you were testifying that you looked over to your right. Why did you look over to your right? A. Just because I'm nervous. I'm looking everywhere. Q. Did you bring any of your medications here with you? A. Yes, ma'am. Oh, when I looked over my right, I looked to see, I was looking at my medications in there, making sure I had everything listed for you. Q. Now, I understand that you may have brought your nebulizer here today. What is a nebulizer? A. Yes, ma'am. It's, you inhale the mist from liquid medicine. Q. Is it a breathing treatment? A. Yes, yes. Q. And if you need to use that, please let us know. A. I will. Q. Or if you need any other breaks. A. I will. Q. How long have you resided in the Florida Keys? A. Roughly, 20 years. Q. Where? A. I think it was 1999, I think. I'm not quite sure. Q. Where did you reside in November of 2017? A. On Stock Island. Q. Do you recall the specific address? A. 5650 Laurel Avenue. Q. And what was your arrangement to live there? A. I paid $200 a month, I believe, and we took care of the property. My friend came over and cut the grass and stuff like that. Q. Do you know who owned the property? A. Matthew Bonnet. Q. And did you enter into that agreement to rent space there with Matthew Bonnet? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Can you describe the setup of the property? A. There was, when you walked in, there was a main house trailer that Matthew resided in. There was rooms in the back that pretty much got destroyed by the hurricane. There was a little trailer on the left. And there was a double-decker wood frame, what we called a tree house. I stayed up on the very top. Q. And when you say in the very top, do you mean the tree house? A. Yes. Q. So why was it called the tree house? A. I don't know. It's because it's made, I don't know. We just called it a tree house. Q. Can you describe the tree house? A. It's a wooden, like, two-story structure, I don't know, 3 sets of stairs, but 2 actual stories, all over top of Matthew's trailer house. Q. All right. So just to kind of recap, so you said there's this tree house structure, there's a trailer, and then there's, like, another travel trailer? A. Yes, to the left. Q. Who lived in the travel trailer? A. Ben Hansen. Q. And did anyone live in the trailer with Matthew Bonnet? A. Not with Matthew specifically, but behind that residence. Behind Matthew was blocked off, and behind that, there was 2 other rooms. Anathea Clay lived in the back. Q. And did Anathea Clay also go by another name? A. April. Q. Now, specifically talking about the tree house structure, if you were going up to the first set of stairs, can you kind of describe to us how you would walk in and what was the, A? Okay. You went up the first set of stairs and to your left, there was a small platform room. And then you went up another set of stairs to get to a landing, and you turned the corner, and then you got upstairs to the top structure. Q. Where did you reside? A. Up at the top structure. I guess the way it worked. Q. Can you please describe your room? A. It was just open. I had a chaise lounge, another chaise lounge, I guess you would call it, set up for beds. There was a roof over top. Not the whole thing. Just, like, where I slept at was a little roof. Q. What kind of roof was it? A. A tarp. Q. And you described it as not completely enclosed. A. No. Q. So what did you have for walls? A. Nothing, really. Just some blankets to put over top, just to block the light out from the roadway. Q. Did you have a door? A. No, ma'am. Q. Did you have running water? A. Pardon me? Q. Did you have running water? A. No, ma'am. Q. And did you have a toilet? A. No. CVS. Q. What's that mean? A. CVS. Q. Oh, okay. A. That's where I would go. Q. And where was CVS located? A. Right directly across the street. The court reporter, can you just wait for her to finish before you answer? The witness, okay. State's Exhibits A1 through A19 were marked. Ms. Poist, if I may approach the witness. Q. I am showing you what's been previously marked as State's Composite A1 through 19 for identification. If you could please take a look at those. A. That's the tree house. Ms. Higgins, do you know if those are the scene photographs? Ms. Poist, yes. Ms. Higgins, did I get them? Ms. Poist, yes. The court reporter, just, if you could speak in the microphone when you speak, please. The witness, yes, they're all the tree house. By Ms. Poist, Q. How do you recognize those photographs? A. Because that's where I lived. Q. And are those a true and accurate depiction of the tree house as it existed that night? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Do those photographs appear to have been changed or altered in any way? A. No. Ms. Poist, for the record, I have given copies of these exact exhibits, Composite A1 through 19, to the court reporter to attach to the deposition. Q. Now, there appears to have been a sleeping bag on the first floor platform. A. Yes. Q. Who slept there? A. Todd. Sometimes when he slept there, that's where he would sleep. Q. Is that Todd O'Quinn? A. I'm sorry. Yes. Todd O'Quinn. Q. And on the second floor or the top floor where you resided, A. The top floor. Q. There appears to be 2 beds. A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Can you tell us about those? A. Roosevelt Washington would come over a lot on the weekends and he would sleep in the bed that's got the black and white quilt on it. Well, not the bed. The chair, lounge chair, whatever you want to call it. Q. And is that the bed that's located closest to what we'd call the doorway or the stair? A. The steps, yes. Q. And did you utilize the other bed, kind of like a chaise lounge? A. Yes. Q. Did Roosevelt Washington plan on staying with you that night? A. It wasn't really specifically said. Q. All right. Focusing your attention on Friday, November 17th of 2017, what had you done earlier that day? A. Was hanging out upstairs with my friend Roger Ruggett. Had a friend drop me off some ice. Had a friend who had come down and brought me a roast beef and cheese sandwich from Arby's and, basically, we were just sitting around. Q. So let's start earlier in the day. Do you know approximately what time you woke up? A. What time what? Q. You woke up? A. Oh, God. I don't know. Probably 8:00 o'clock, 9:00 o'clock. Q. How were you feeling that day? A. Not well. I wasn't breathing good. Q. Now, the conditions you testified about earlier, the COPD and the asthma, did you have those conditions at that time in November of 2017? A. Yes, but I didn't have a pulmonologist to diagnose them. Q. Did anyone come up to visit you in the treehouse? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Who visited you first? A. Rory Wilson, with another person who I don't know who it was. Q. How did you know Rory Wilson? A. Because he had been at the property previously. Q. What did you know him as? A. Detroit. Q. Approximately what time did Detroit end? A. Somewhere around noon. Somewhere around noon. Sorry. Q. Now, for Detroit, how many times had you met him previously? A. Maybe 5 or 6. Q. When you saw him previously, was it always at the tree house or was it somewhere else? A. I had saw him one time over at CVS in line. And then, one night I saw him outside of the tree house. I don't know if that counts as the tree house. He was outside of the property trying to get in, asking to come in. So I don't know how many. Q. And the other times then, you would have seen him at the tree house? A. Yes. Inside the property, inside of the gate. Q. How much total time had you spent with him prior to November 17th? A. Maybe 20 minutes. Q. Now, can you describe his appearance? A. He's very big. I'm not too good at judging size, but I'd say, like, 6'2", maybe 225 pounds. Q. And is he black, white, Hispanic? A. He's a black man. Ms. Gomez Malata, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the answer. The witness, he's a black man. Ms. Gomez Malata, thank you. Q. Did you have any conversations with him during these encounters you had with him before? A. All of the encounters. Q. Were you familiar with his voice? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Now, on this particular day, November 17th, do you know why Detroit and his friend came to the treehouse? A. In the afternoon, they came looking for drugs. Q. How do you know they were looking for drugs? A. Because Detroit asked. Q. Who did Detroit ask for drugs? A. Me. Q. Back in November of 2017, did you use drugs? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. What drugs did you use? A. Crack cocaine. Q. Had you used any that day? A. No, ma'am. Q. What did you tell him? A. No, and get off the property. Q. Do you recall what he was wearing? A. Yes. He was wearing the same. He was wearing, like, a dark blue sweatshirt, shorts, and these, like, shoe boot, dark black shoe boot things. They were, like, boot material but not high as boots. They were shoes, if that makes sense. Q. On November 17th, how long did you spend with Detroit that day? A. In the daytime or the nighttime? Q. In the daytime. A. 2 minutes. Q. Now, due to COVID-19 safety precautions, some individuals are located here in the courtroom and some are appearing remotely via Zoom. Do you see the individual that you know as Detroit? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Do you see him here in person or appearing remotely? A. He's appearing remotely. Q. Can you please describe what he is wearing? A. Alls I can see is his blue mask. You can't see nothing else. Q. Is there anyone else in the same frame? A. Yeah, that lady. That lawyer lady. I'm sorry, I don't know her name. Ms. Poist, all right. And may the record reflect that the witness has identified defendant Rory Wilson, who is appearing via Zoom with his attorney. Q. Now, after Rory Wilson had left in the morning, did you, A. Afternoon. Q. Did you have any encounters with anyone else during the afternoon? A. Roosevelt Washington had appeared. Crystal Dinclocker and Matthew had come up the stairs. Todd O'Quinn. My friend Link brought me ice. The court reporter, can you repeat that name? The witness, Link. Link. That's his actual name, Link, L-I-N-K. Q. So let's talk about each of set of individuals one at a time. You talked about Crystal and Matt. Who were they and when did you see them? A. Matthew was Matthew Bonnet. And Crystal Dinclocker appeared to see April and said she wanted to see me. And she was never one of my friends, but Matthew brought her upstairs. Q. Do you know approximately when that was? A. It was early. I think, around 10:00 o'clock. Q. So before Rory Wilson and his friend? A. Yes, yes. Q. Now, you mentioned Todd O'Quinn. A. That was the afternoon. Q. Do you know or recall if he had stayed there the night before? A. I'm not sure. I don't think so. Q. And as far as that afternoon, in what context did you see him or what was he doing? A. He was trying to put a door up on the stairway so people couldn't just walk up. Q. Now, you previously testified that you lived in the tree house and the tree house didn't have a door. So was he trying to help set up a door? A. Yes. Q. To the tree house? A. Yes. Q. And was the door going to go at the first bottom of the stairs or to where you stayed? A. The very bottom of the stairs. Q. And what did he do to try to put up this door? A. Well, he brought the door and the door didn't fit right so that was stored at the top of the stairs. Q. Was he back and forth on the property trying to figure out if it would work? A. I'm not sure exactly what he did because I stayed upstairs. I know at one point he had mentioned that he had been, the hardware store didn't have the right hinges but I had never seen him come back. I was upstairs. Q. You also mentioned your friend Link. A. Uh-huh. Q. Is that a yes? A. Yes. I'm sorry. Q. And approximately when did Link came over? A. I believe around 5:00 or 6:00. Q. And you said he came over because? A. He brought me some ice from the store. Q. Now, earlier, you had also mentioned that someone had brought you Arby's. A. That was after Link. Q. And who brought you Arby's? A. My friend JD. Q. And that was before or after Link was there? A. I believe it was after Link. Q. And you also mentioned Roosevelt, Washington. A. Yes, ma'am. He was there every weekend, pretty much. Q. And what did you see him doing? A. He had come upstairs and said hello to me. Then he was downstairs with Matt. Q. When did he come upstairs to see you? A. Because he always came up to see me whenever he showed up. Q. At any other point in time on that day did he come upstairs? A. I don't believe so. Q. So, just to make sure I understand chronologically as far as people, the first people you would have seen was Crystal Dinclocker and Matthew Bonnet. Then you would have seen Rory Wilson and his friend. Then you would have seen Link. A. No, you're missing my friend Roger. Q. And JD? A. Uh-huh. Q. Now, O'Quinn would have been in and out during the day? A. Yes. Q. What time did Roosevelt come over? A. I don't know. 4:00 o'clock maybe. After he was done work. Q. And when did Roger come over? A. Roger comes over around 2:00. Q. What were you and Roger doing? A. Hanging out. Roger drinks beer. He would come over every weekend and drink beer, well, not every weekend but every Friday. Check on the grass to see if the grass needed to be cut. Q. So earlier when you were talking about your friend that helped maintain the property, were you talking about Roger? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Were you also drinking beer? A. No. I don't drink. Q. Now, at some point in time did it grow dark and then someone else came back upstairs? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. And what happened? A. Well, I was laying back on the bed and next thing I know, I don't know how to say this because I knew it was Detroit. Rory Wilson came running at me, and I couldn't figure out why he was running at me, and then jumped on top of me, put the knife to my neck and told me to give it to me, or give me what you got, or something like that, or I'm going to kill you. And there was another person behind him that went after Roger. Q. So let's talk about each individual one at a time. What was the person who came after you wearing? A. Dark blue or black sweatshirt, shorts, and the black boot shoe things, and a mask, which I didn't realize at first he had a mask on because he jumped right on top of me. Q. How big or small was this person? A. Big. Roughly, around 6 foot, 225 pounds. But, again, I'm not a very good judge, size-wise. Q. How did you know the person was A? I knew who it was immediately just by who he was. The voice. After hearing the voice, there was no doubt in my mind. He was wearing the same clothes and being at the house earlier. Q. Now, you said at first you didn't realize the person was wearing a mask. A. No, because the way he jumped on top of me. Q. Did you see any weapons? A. No. Not on him. Q. So the Detroit that you refer to as coming to the property earlier, is that the same person you're saying was there now? A. Yes. Q. Now, what is your size? A. I'm 5'5". Anywhere from 92 to 97 pounds, depending on how my health is doing. Q. And is that inaccurate? A. Yes. Q. Description of your height and weight at that time? A. Yes. Always has been. Q. And so you said you're on the chaise, kind of your bed and, A. Yes. Q. This person climbs on top of you? A. Yes. Q. So can you describe what they were doing to you? A. Had a knife digging into my neck, which I had, cutting my neck, hurting me. Telling me to give him my purse. Give it to me, bitch, or I'm going to kill you. Every time I yelled, I would get punched alongside of the head. Was yanked up by my hair to tell me to shut up. Q. Now, you said you didn't see a knife, but you're saying you felt a knife against your throat? A. I felt the knife. Q. Can you describe the knife? A. It was sharp. It felt jagged but it felt sharp, and it felt big. Q. Now, you described that there was a second person that had come upstairs as well. A. Yes. Q. Can you describe that person? A. Alls I saw was the back of that person. He was littler. Smaller, like, not as wide. Wearing a black hoodie. I just saw the back of him. And holding something big like a billy club or something. I only saw him from the back. Q. Now, you said that this person is smaller. Are you saying that in relation to Detroit? A. Detroit, yes. Q. Could you see what that second person was doing? A. Alls I saw that second person doing was I saw him through, like, the side of my body because I had someone on top of me. He was grabbing my backpack, opening up my backpack. That was the only thing that I saw. Q. Do you know where or what Roger was doing during this time? A. No, I didn't, because I couldn't see past Detroit. Q. Now, you talked about a backpack. A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Who had the backpack? A. The other person. Not Detroit, the second person. Q. And can you describe the backpack? A. Black leather, just a plain, black backpack. Q. What did you have in the backpack? A. My keys, jewelry, perfume, a little pink purse that had witches on it. I know there's other stuff in it but I didn't describe that so I don't think I can answer that. Like, I know what you showed me picture-wise, but I don't remember that stuff, although it's mine. So I don't know how to answer that question. Does that make sense? States Exhibit B1 through B6 were marked. Q. Well, I'm going to show you what is States Exhibit, Composite Exhibit B1 through 6, A. Okay. Q. For identification. If you would please take a look at those. A. Okay. That's my backpack. And my notebook. Q. Do you recognize those photographs? A. Yes, I do. Q. How do you recognize those photographs? A. Because it's my backpack. Q. And do you recognize the contents of the A? There's my food stamp card. Yes, ma'am. There's the purse that I just described to you. I recognize that notebook. I'm sorry, I think I got them out of order. I'm sorry. Q. And are these photographs depicting at least part of what was in your purse? A. Yes. Q. That day? A. Yes. Q. Was absolutely everything that was in your backpack recovered? A. No. Q. What was not recovered? A. I had a brand new bottle of their perfume. I know I had some other items. I had a letter to my child who was in jail at the time. I don't know how to answer the question about my keys because they were recovered by somebody else, but they had been in the backpack. And it's been almost 3 years. I can't tell you what else was in it. Probably candy. Q. Now, you mentioned while this was going on, you're getting punched in the face, there's a knife to your throat, you're getting threats, that you scream for help? A. Yes, ma'am. And kicking the floor. Q. Why were you screaming for help and kicking the floor? A. Because I needed help. I was getting cut. I was getting beat up. Q. Did anyone respond? A. Yes. Q. Who responded? A. Matthew. Q. And did Matthew respond up the stairs to the treehouse? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Could you hear anything he was saying? A. I heard him say, "What are you doing here?" Q. So what's the highest or closest he got to you up there in the tree house? A. Hold on. He got to the landing up top of the stairs where if he would have been able to turn a corner, he could have taken the 3 stairs up to my level. So there's a landing where you would turn the corner to go up and he was on that landing. Q. All right. So just for the purposes of the record, there's the steps, first floor. Steps, little landing. Second stair steps that then go to your place at the top. A. You go up the first set of stairs, there's a walkway. You go up the second set of stairs, there's a landing. He made it to that landing. If he had made it around the corner, he would have made it up to me. Q. Could you see Matthew Bonnet? A. Yeah. Q. What happened when he came upstairs? A. He didn't make it up the stairs. He made it to the landing. Q. And what happened when he made it to the landing? A. There was a tussle and I heard him fall down the stairs. Q. Now, when he started coming up the stairs and making it to the landing, what did Detroit, who was on you, do? A. He was off of me by that point in time. He was ready to go down the stairs. The second person, he come back up the stairs, smashed Roger in the face, knocked him off. And then they were both after Matt, I believe. It's kind of fuzzy. Matt was there with Detroit at him, is what I know for sure. I'm not quite sure about the second person. The second person, in my mind, was behind Matt, like, on the stairs, had been in the back side of Matt. It was Detroit going after Matt. And then I heard a tussle. And then, down the bottom of the stairs, Rory was still up, like, up, because he kept going back and forth. And I heard the second person say, I think we killed him, and then Rory took off. Q. So let's break it down a little bit more. So you said that when Matt came upstairs that Detroit was no longer, I guess, on top of you? A. On top of me, no. He was maybe from here to, not as far as this lady, and not as far as you. In the middle, away from me. Q. So, approximately, 3 to 4 feet away? A. I don't know. I'm no good at guessing that. In the middle of me and you. The distance between me and you, halfway. Q. And did you see the second person at this time? A. The second person was somehow behind Matt. Like, Matt had gotten past that second person. Q. So just to make sure we're clear, A. The second person was at this end, up against the railing on the landing. Q. So the second person had already gone down the stairs? A. Yes. Q. And then, A. And he came back up the stairs. Q. All right. So the second person had gone down the stairs and, A. Up the stairs. Q. Rory Wilson, Detroit, was still on the top but not on top of you? A. No, not on top of me. Q. And so, would that not have been in between the two? A. Yes. They were going back and forth, and like I said, I can't remember correctly, but Rory would have been this way on the landing facing Matt. Q. Do you see what transpired in this tussle? A. I saw Rory doing this towards Matt, not knowing he was stabbing him or hitting him, and then pushing him. And then I heard the tussle going down the stairs. Q. Now, you're doing kind of like a stabbing type motion. A. Stabbing or fighting? Punching, stabbing. Q. So you could not see a knife? A. No. Q. So you just saw him do some sort of motion like that, what you're saying? A. Yes. Q. Is a stabbing motion? A. Yes. Q. With his hands towards Mr. Bonnet? A. Yes. Actually, it would have been the left hand. I'm showing you with my right because I'm right-handed, but it's left-handed. And then pushing him. Q. Now, after this tussle, did Rory Wilson come back upstairs or did they leave? A. They left. I mean, I didn't see him after that. Q. At any point in time during this interaction did you try to arm yourself or try to protect yourself? A. At one point, I had Roger's knife in my hand. Roger had pulled it out or something. I don't know. It was all over the place. And then, I just put it down because I was too scared. I had a hammer under the bed. I guess I should have picked that up. But, no, I put my hand up against my neck to try and prevent the knife from going in farther. If that's considered protecting myself, I don't know. And screaming for help and kicking the floor. Q. Now, at this point in time, you realize you had been cut? A. That's kind of a hard question to answer. I knew that I was hurt. I didn't know that I was actually sliced that much. I thought it was just from the knife digging into me so hard. Q. When you're describing everything that's happening, is it dark up in the treehouse? A. It's dark but it's not pitch black because you had street lights. Q. Was there any lights on inside the treehouse like a lamp or anything? A. No. Not that I'm aware. Not that, I have a lantern but I can't say for sure whether it was on. Probably was, because it normally was, but I can't say yes or no. Q. Was anything besides the backpack taken? Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that question. I'm sorry. Ms. Poist, was anything besides the backpack taken? A. Well, the contents of the backpack. Q. And was there any money? A. I had. Q. That was taken? A. I had $27, something like that, and some change in the little pink witchy purse, and whatever was in the backpack. Q. After you saw the men go downstairs, did you hear anything? A. I didn't see them go down the stairs. I didn't see them go down the stairs. I heard them go down the stairs but I didn't see them. Q. And what did you hear next after that? A. I heard a car door shut, and then I heard a car. Q. And when you say you heard a car, what did you hear the car do? A. Start up and leave. Q. Did you see where the car was located? A. No, ma'am. It sounded, no. Q. But based on the sound, you believe it was close by? A. Yes. Q. Did you call 911? A. No. Q. Why not? A. It took a while to find my phone. Everything had been tussled around. My friend had called me and that's how I was able, with the light from that, was able to find my telephone, and he called 911. Q. What friend called you? A. Wesley Moat. Q. Did you ever try to venture downstairs or did you decide to wait for law enforcement? A. I stayed upstairs. Q. Why did you stay upstairs? A. Because I was terrified. Wasn't sure who was where, if there was anybody else still there. Q. And did you wait for law enforcement to arrive? A. Yes. Q. What did you do while you were waiting? A. Hung over the railing, trying to see. Roger had went down to chase after the people and he wasn't coming back. And just screamed for help, basically. Kept screaming for somebody to come and help me. Q. When law enforcement arrived, did they ask who was involved? A. Pardon me? Q. Did they ask who had done this to you? A. Who did this to me? Yes. Jenna Moeller did. Q. And did you tell her? A. Yes, I did. Right away. I said the name Detroit. Creep. Q. Was an ambulance called to look at you for potential injuries? A. They then showed up, yeah. I didn't know what anybody had said on 911. Q. Now, what injuries did you sustain? A. A gash in my neck, the side of my head beaten in, and a gash in my hand, my left hand. Q. Were those received during the robbery and the attack? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Did you go to the hospital by ambulance? A. Yes. Q. Did you want to go to the hospital? A. No. Q. Why not? A. I have no idea, honestly. Maybe I was in shock. Maybe I don't know. I had no idea why I didn't want to go to the hospital. Q. Did you receive stitches at the hospital? A. No. I wouldn't allow myself to be stitched. I got glued. I didn't want any more pain. I didn't want any more anything poking me. As in a needle, I didn't want nothing poking me so they glued it. Q. Can you just repeat the last part? You tapered off again. A. They glued my neck and my hand with some kind of glue that they use, against advice because they wanted to stitch it but I wouldn't allow it. States Exhibit C1 through C4 were marked. Ms. Poist, if I may approach the witness. Q. I'm showing you what's been marked as Composite Exhibit C1 through 4. If you could take a look at those. Do you recognize those? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. How do you recognize those? A. Because they're the injuries that I sustained on my hand, on my neck, on the side of my head. Q. Were those taken by law enforcement in the hospital? A. Honestly, I don't remember who took them. I don't know if the hospital took them or if the law people took them. I don't remember. Q. Are they a true and accurate depiction of your injuries after you were glued? A. Yes. Well, my hand's not. My hand's not glued yet there. Q. But is your neck glued? A. Yeah. Q. And so is that a fair and accurate depiction of your pictures, your hand not being glued but your neck being glued? A. Yes. Q. Have those photographs been changed or altered in any way? A. Not as far as I'm concerned, no. Q. Were there any injuries that you sustained that could not be seen in the photographs? A. No, ma'am. Nothing that I can remember. My hand, my neck, my head. Q. Were your fingernail scrapings collected at the hospital? A. No. Q. Had they cleaned up your hand at the hospital? A. Only partially. Q. Did you return home to the treehouse that night or did you stay somewhere else? A. A little bit of both. I returned to the treehouse to get my fingernail scrapings done. Q. Okay. A. Then was taken to my girlfriend's house to stay the night. Q. When did you return to the treehouse after that initial first night? A. The next morning or afternoon. I'm not quite sure of the time. It was early afternoon, I believe. Q. Did you meet with law enforcement again about the case? A. They drove me there. Q. Did they ask you for more information about what happened? A. Before we went there, yes. Q. At a later date, did they show you a photo lineup? A. Yes. Q. And who did you identify in the photo lineup? A. Detroit, Rory Wilson. Q. Did you have any hesitation? A. No, ma'am. Instant. State's Exhibit D was marked. Q. I'm showing you what's been marked as State's Exhibit D for identification. Do you recognize it? A. Yes, I do. Q. Is that a true and accurate copy? A. Yes, it is. Q. Of the photo lineup that was, A. I'm sorry. Q. Shown to you that day? A. Yes, ma'am. As far as I remember, same lineup. Q. All right. And is there a circle and your initials? A. Yes, there is. Q. And that's indicating that that's the person who you know as Detroit? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. And did you also put on it 100%? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. And why did you put 100%? A. Because that's 100%. It's 1,000%. It's the man who did it. Q. At a later date, did you provide your DNA to law enforcement? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. And was your DNA freely and voluntarily given? A. Yes. Q. Now, you indicated that you had seen the second person very limited, I believe, only from the back? A. Yes. Q. Did you ever get a front look at their face? A. No, ma'am. Q. Do you know whether or not they were wearing a mask? A. I personally, myself, don't know, no. Q. Can you describe the clothing that person's wearing? A. I already did. They had a dark hoodie on. Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry, but I'm having a hard time hearing. The witness, a dark hoodie, an all-over sweatshirt hoodie and dark pants. Q. Could you see that person's skin? A. No. Q. At some point, did you tell the police that you thought that second person might be black? A. Yes. I told them when they were taking me down the stairs, I believe. I had originally thought the person was black because they were wearing black, and then called the next morning and said, no, that I wasn't sure. Q. All right. So did you tell the police that you thought the person might be black because the person was wearing black clothing? A. Wearing all black, yeah. I guess I just associated, I don't know. Q. And so you never saw the person's skin? A. No. Q. And can you give a size on that person? A. Just littler. Littler than Detroit. Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry. Again, I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question. The witness, littler than Detroit. Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry. I didn't hear the question. The witness, it's okay. I'm starting to get overwinded. Ms. Poist, I asked for the size of the second person. Mr. Ballarotto, the size of the second person? Q. Are all the events that you've just described occurred here in Monroe County? A. Yes, ma'am. Ms. Poist, the state has no further questions at this time. The witness, can we take a break? Mr. Levy, yeah, we can do that. Right now would be perfect. Off the record discussion. The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 11:07 a.m. We are going off the record. Recess from 11:07 a.m. to 11:20 a.m. The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 11:20 a.m. We are back on the record. Cross-examination, by Mr. Levy, Q. Good morning, Ms. Belmonte. How are you? A. Good morning, how are you? It's Belmonte. Q. Belmonte. I apologize. A. But how are you? Q. All right. Good morning. My name is Seth Levy. I represent John Travis Johnson. A. Okay. Q. I just have a couple of questions for you. A. Okay. Q. Do you know John Travis Johnson? A. No. Not personally, no. Q. Okay. Prior to the date of this incident, you never hung out with him, never. A. No. Q. Associated with him? A. No. Q. Okay. Did you even? A. No, sir. Q. Had you ever even met John Travis Johnson? A. I don't know how to answer that because he might have been the person that was there with Detroit, but I don't know for sure. Other than that, the only time I ever saw him was in the newspaper and, here. Q. Okay. Well, when you say that he might have been a second person, that's just you guessing. You're guessing. A. No, this was in the daytime. Q. Okay. A. Someone showed up with Detroit but I can't say for sure. So I don't know how to answer that question. I don't want to lie and say yes. I don't want to lie and say no. Q. Okay. Have you ever identified John Travis Johnson? A. No, sir. Q. Is that person? A. No. Q. Have you ever seen John Travis Johnson with Matthew Bonnet? A. No, sir. Q. And have you ever seen him hanging out with Crystal? A. No, sir. Q. Have you ever seen him hanging out with Roosevelt Washington? A. No, sir. Q. Okay. Have you ever seen John Travis Johnson hanging out with Todd O'Quinn? A. No, sir. Q. And how about with Link? Have you ever seen John Travis Johnson hanging out with Link? A. No, sir. Q. Have you ever seen John Travis Johnson hanging out with any of your friends? A. No, sir. Q. Okay. Have you ever personally seen him at the tree house where you knew it was him? A. No, sir. Mr. Levy, okay. No further questions from me. The witness, okay. Mr. Levy, if I could have just one moment to confer with my client. All right. No further questions. The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 11:22 a.m. We are going off the record. Recess from 11:22 a.m. to 11:22 a.m. The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 11:22 a.m. We are back on the record. Cross-examination, by Ms. Gomez Malata, Q. Good morning. Good morning, Ms. Belmonte. My name is Ana Gomez Malata. I represent Rory Wilson. I'd like to ask you a few questions this morning. A. Fine. Q. Let me start with you. At the very beginning of Ms. Poist's direct examination, you said they came looking. Who do you mean they? Who are the they? How many people and who were they? A. It was 2 people and I already said, I don't know who they were. It was whoever Detroit brought with him. Q. 1 person, you knew? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. And the other person, you did not? A. Correct. Q. The other person, was he black or white? A. White. Q. He was a white man. Approximately how old was this white man? A. Lady, I don't know. 30, 35, 40. I'm no good at guessing. Q. Well, could he have been 60-ish, ma'am? A. No. Somewhere between 30 and 50. Q. I'm sorry? A. Somewhere between 30 and 50. Q. Okay. All right. And when these 2 people, one of whom you know and one of whom you don't, came over to you, what's the first thing that happened? A. They came up the stairs and Detroit asked for drugs. Q. What kind of drugs? A. Crack. Q. Did he specifically say crack? A. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure. Q. Why would he be looking for drugs from you? A. Ask him. Q. Well, I'm asking you, actually. A. I don't know. Ms. Poist, objection, calls for speculation. Ms. Gomez Malata, well, no. If she knows. Why would somebody be coming to her, the witness, same reason he came looking there for pot for Matthew? Who knows? Q. Well, let me ask you this way. Are you a drug dealer? A. No, ma'am. Q. I'm sorry? A. No, ma'am. Q. Were you ever a drug dealer? A. Nope. I might have bought some for some people but that doesn't make me a drug dealer. Q. So you did sell drugs? A. I bought drugs for people if they were looking for some. Q. You never have sold anybody any drugs? A. I just said yes. I'm not going to deal with this woman. Q. How many times? A. I don't know. 5, 10. I don't know. Q. When was the last time you sold drugs? A. Who knows? Somewhere in the 2017. Q. When was the last time you sold drugs? In December of 2017. A. I said sometime in 2017. Q. Okay. All right. A. She cannot keep making me repeat myself. And I got to talk loud. Because I'm going to lose my breath is all I'm going to say. So you need to do something with the noise. The court reporter, I can only get 1 person at a time. Q. What kind of drugs was that you sold in 2017? A. Crack cocaine. Crack cocaine. Q. Okay. And did you do that during 2011 as well? A. I don't recall. Q. What kind of work were you doing in 2011? A. I don't recall. 9 years ago. Q. Did you ever work as a confidential informant for the police? A. I'm not answering that question. I plead the fifth. Q. Well, I'd object. I think that's just one question you need to answer, ma'am. A. It has nothing to do with this case. I'm not answering that question. Ms. Poist, State will object to relevance. Q. Well, were you an informer in approximately 36 cases for the police? A. I'm not answering that question. It's got nothing to do with this. Q. Well, A. Whether I was or wasn't, I'm not, it has nothing to do with this case, and I'm not answering the question, and I'm not saying it again. Ms. Poist, State objects to relevance. Ms. Gomez Malata, Christine, you're objecting to the form. Is that correct? Ms. Poist, we're objecting to the question on the basis of relevance. Ms. Gomez Malata, okay. The witness, 3 dozen. That's pretty wild. Q. And you say there was oh, no, let me ask you this. Were O'Quinn and Roosevelt Washington present at the treehouse on the date of the incident? A. The date of the incident, yes. Q. Todd O'Quinn and Roosevelt Washington both were present at the treehouse. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. What part of the treehouse were they in while this alleged robbery transpired? A. I beg your pardon, it's not an alleged robbery. And I don't know because I was upstairs getting my neck cut. Q. Uh-huh. But you know that they were in the treehouse somewhere, right? A. No, I don't know that for a fact. Q. Well, that's why I asked you. Were Todd O'Quinn and Roosevelt Washington present at the treehouse at the time of the incident? A. No. You asked me if they were there during that day. They were, I don't know if they were there during the incident. Q. Okay. You say Detroit, when he came up, he put his knife against your neck and said, give it to me or I'll kill you. A. Yes, ma'am. Q. What was he referring to? A. At one point he said money, give me your purse, give it to me, give me your purse. Like that. Q. Have you ever discussed this event with anybody but police officers? A. Of course. I'm discussing it with you right now. What kind of question is that? Q. Okay. Did you ever tell Robert Nevius that you, A. I don't know that person, Q. Thought that, had set up, A. That I recall. He says he knows me but I don't really know him. Ms. Gomez Malata, I didn't get any of that. The court reporter, excuse me. I didn't get the question. Q. The question is, did you ever tell Robert Nevius that Anthea Clay had set up that little robbery? Ms. Poist, objection, calls for hearsay, improper impeachment. Ms. Gomez Malata, well, if she told him, she told him. If she didn't, she didn't. The witness, do I have to answer this? Have I got to waste my breath answering questions? The court reporter, I can't get more than one at a time. Mr. Levy, you do. By Ms. Gomez Malata, Q. Do you, in fact, think Anthea Clay set up this robbery? A. That, yes, I do. Q. With whom did she set it up? Who did she send in there? A. I can't answer that question. Possibly the people who came and cut my neck. Q. Why would Anthea Clay set up a robbery? Ms. Poist, objection, calls for speculation. By Ms. Gomez Malata, Q. Do you know Anthea Clay? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Have you ever ripped her off? A. No, ma'am. Q. Has there ever been a time when you failed to deliver her money or drugs that belonged to her? A. Ma'am, you know what, the woman doesn't have any money, okay. I've got no issues with her, owing her any money. Why don't you try it the other way around? Q. So you have no beef with her whatsoever? A. I can't stand the woman. How is that? Q. That tells it. Okay. How did you meet Rory Wilson anyway? A. Anthea Clay brought him to the tree house. Q. Why did she bring him to the tree house? What happened there? A. Anthea Clay is, am I allowed to say this? Anthea Clay is a whore and she picks up men and brings them home to the tree house. She brought a bunch of men. Q. Okay. For what purpose? A. To have sex for money. I don't know. I wasn't in the room. Q. Was there a prostitution ring being run out of the tree house? Ms. Poist. Objection. Relevance. Speculation. A. You are out of your mind. Ms. Gomez Malata. Well, she just said that Anthea Clay brought men to the tree house to have sex. I'm just asking the logical question. Q. Was there a prostitution ring being run out of the tree house? A. I believe there's a difference between a woman who picks up men and a prostitution ring. Mr. Levy. Objection. Relevance. Q. I didn't get that. A. Why can't you hear? I'm tired of screaming at this woman. I don't know if there was a prostitution ring. Just because a woman picks someone up and brings them home, that doesn't mean it's a prostitution ring. Did you hear that one? Q. Well, you said she brought a bunch of men. Didn't you say she brought a bunch of men? Ms. Poist. Objection. Relevance. A. Yes. Ms. Poist. Beyond direct. Q. Was it for the purpose of having sex with her or with other people? Ms. Poist. Objection. Calls for speculation. Objection. Relevance. By Ms. Gomez Malata. Q. Why can't you stand Anthea Clay? Ms. Poist. Objection. Relevance. The witness. Thank you. Ms. Gomez Malata. It's relevant because she claimed that Anthea Clay set up this robbery and that she hates her, so I want to know why she hates her. Mr. Levy. She still needs to answer the question in spite of the objection. A. I don't like Anthea Clay. I don't like you. I'm going to answer that question. How's that? Q. Is it because you don't want to be lying on the stand? A. I'm not lying about anything. What I'm getting real agitated is that I'm losing my breath over having to answer question after question after question. Ms. Poist. Do you need a break, ma'am? The witness. I need to not answer stupid questions over and over again, okay? My voice is not going to put up with this. Q. Are you afraid to answer questions that might incriminate you? A. Lady, you know what, I'm tired of wasting my breath with you, okay? It's very hard for me to breathe. You're asking stupid questions. It's got nothing to do with me lying. It's got you making me lose my breath. Is that a good enough answer for you? Ms. Poist. The state's going to request a break. The witness. I'm not doing this. Ms. Gomez Malata. Are we taking a break, folks? Ms. Poist. Yes. The witness. I'm not doing this. I'll call 911 and go right to the hospital. I'm not doing this. The videographer. Today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 11:33 a.m. We are going off the record. Recess from 11:33 a.m. to 11:49 a.m. The videographer. Today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 11:49 a.m. We are back on the record. Ms. Gomez Malata, shall I continue with my examination? Ms. Poist. Yes. Ms. Gomez Malata. Okay. By Ms. Gomez Malata. Q. Ma'am, who lived on the top floor of the tree house? A. I did. Q. Did anybody else? A. No. Q. Not Tucker, not Johnson? A. No. Q. Nobody else? A. Nobody else lived in the top floor of the tree house. No. Q. What about the other floors? Did either Mr. Tucker or Mr. Johnson live there on any of the other floors? A. No. Q. Okay. Isn't it true that what you have against Mr. Wilson is that you wanted to be selling drugs there and he didn't want you selling drugs around his pregnant girlfriend? A. No, ma'am. Q. You didn't want to sell drugs or his girlfriend wasn't pregnant? A. Ma'am, I don't even know his girlfriend. Q. You weren't selling drugs at any time during 2017. Is that correct? A. Yes, ma'am. I was. Q. You were. And isn't it true that, weren't you selling that where he lived with his girlfriend who was pregnant? A. Pardon me? What did she say? Q. Isn't it true that Rory Wilson did not want you selling your drugs at the place where he also lived with his pregnant girlfriend? A. Ma'am, no. I got no clue. Q. He never told you to stop selling drugs or get out? A. No, ma'am. Q. Okay. Were you still a police snitch in 2017? Ms. Poist, objection, relevance. A. No, ma'am. Q. The question is, were you still a police snitch in 2017? Ms. Poist, objection, characterization, argumentative. Ms. Gomez-Malata, I am not hearing an answer. The witness, I still have to answer if you say objection? Ms. Poist, if we make an objection, you still need to answer it to the best of your ability. A. Okay. I'm going to plead the fifth. Q. Is that B because the answer would tend to incriminate you? A. That's because I'm pleading the fifth. Q. Yeah, that's what the fifth is, when you refuse to answer on the grounds that your response may incriminate you. Ms. Poist, objection, argumentative. It's not a question. Ms. Gomez-Malata, oh, so you, oh, okay. By Ms. Gomez-Malata, Q. The backpack, let's talk about the backpack. You said there was a backpack involved at the time of the incident? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Who had the backpack? A. I did. It was mine. Q. You did, it was your backpack. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. And who took it from you? A. The other person. Q. Not Rory? A. No, ma'am. Q. It was the white guy? A. I can't say it was a white guy. Q. Oh, you, A. I originally thought it was a black guy because he was wearing all black. And was told it was a white guy. I don't know who took it. I know it was not Rory Wilson. Q. So you're making a regulation as to what kind of clothing black people may wear? Ms. Poist, objection, argumentative. Ms. Gomez-Malata, it's a question. By Ms. Gomez-Malata, Q. Do you know of any regulations, anything that, A. Ma'am, the person was dressed in all black. I had just gotten stabbed. Perhaps I was in shock. The person was all black. Q. But you didn't see any part of his skin? A. No, ma'am. Q. Do you know whether he was even male? A. No, ma'am. Q. Could have been a woman? A. Could have been. Could have been a woman. Q. Okay. One moment, please. Were you high at the time of this incident? A. No, ma'am. Q. I didn't hear the answer. A. You heard my answer. Q. Were you high at the time of the incident? A. No. Q. You were not high? Ms. Poist, asked and answered. Objection. By Ms. Gomez-Malata, Q. Had you taken any drugs that day at all? A. No, ma'am. Q. With all of your health issues, and I would imagine you take a lot of medications for our health issues, don't you? A. Yes, ma'am. We've been through this already. Q. Have you been told not to do any illegal drugs because of A. I don't do any illegal drugs. Q. The medications? A. I don't do any illegal drugs. Q. Is that because you can't because of all the medications you're taking for A. Ma'am, because I don't, because I'm clean. Q. I didn't hear the answer. A. I don't do any drugs because of my choice. How come she can't hear me? Q. Not because they've told you, you better not do it because A. She hears what I'm saying. Q. It interacts badly with all the actual medication? The court reporter, this is impossible. Ms. Poist, Ms. Gomez Malata, she had originally stated that she does not do any drugs because she is clean. Ms. Gomez Malata, thank you, ma'am. One moment, please. By Ms. Gomez Malata, Q. Were there any drugs in your backpack when the other guy took it? A. No. Ma'am. Q. Okay. So at what point did Mr. Bonnet enter the scene? A. After I was screaming for help. Q. And what did you actually see him do? A. Coming up the stairs. Q. Okay. And when did he get to the landing? A. He got to the landing. Q. And what happened when he reached the landing? A. Then he was attacked. Q. By who? A. Rory Wilson and the other person. Q. Both of them? A. Yes, ma'am. Q. Okay. Did you actually see who stabbed Mr. Bonnet? A. No. Ms. Gomez Malata, one moment, please. Thank you. I have no further questions. The witness, thank God. Redirect examination, by Ms. Poist, Q. Ms. Belmonte, you were asked by Ms. Gomez Malata if Todd O'Quinn and Roosevelt Washington were present at the time that the attack occurred. Do you know if they were on the property downstairs? A. No, I can't say for sure. Q. Did Mr. O'Quinn ever make it up to the top of the treehouse after the attack occurred? A. No. Q. Did Roosevelt Washington? A. No. Q. So you mentioned that you had seen them both earlier in the day, but after the attack you did not see them again? A. I believe I might have saw Todd outside when I was coming out in the ambulance, but I'm not really sure because it's been so long and it was so confusing. But I know Todd did not make it to the top of the stairs. I did not see him whatsoever. Q. All right. So you're testifying that you may have seen Todd after the incident when you were downstairs outside the property? A. Yes. Q. But at no point during this or immediately after, you did not see O'Quinn or Roosevelt Washington inside the treehouse? A. No. Q. Now, there's discussion of this treehouse. Did you know where Rory Wilson lived at this time? A. He didn't live at the treehouse. Q. Do you know where he did live? A. In a warehouse. Q. And do you know where that warehouse was specifically located? A. Not specifically, no. Q. Did you know he had a girlfriend? A. No. Oh, no, I might have. I might have heard that he was due to have a baby. Q. Did you ever have any interactions with her? A. No. Q. Do you know her name? A. Only from reading it, the Q. So now you've come up with information? A. Now, I know her name, yes. Q. But you never knew her name before? A. No, ma'am. Ms. Poist, 1 second. Q. Now, you indicated that you weren't even sure if the other individual with Rory Wilson was male or female because you never saw more than their back. Is that correct? A. That's correct, yes. Q. Now, did you ever hear that second person speak? A. Oh. Then I'm lying. Yes, I did hear the second person speak. Q. Now, what? A. And it was a male's voice. So, yes, then it had to be a male because it was a male's voice. Sorry. Q. And what did you hear that male speak? A. I think we killed him. Q. And at what point was that said? A. After I heard the tussle. Q. Now, do you see the person who said that voice at that time? A. No. Q. Did you recognize the voice? A. No, not at all. Ms. Poist, I have no other questions. The witness, sorry. The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 12 p.m. We are going off the record. Lunch recess from 12 p.m. to 1:10 p.m. The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 1:10 p.m. We are back on the record. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. Are we ready? Cross-examination, by Mr. Ballarotto, Q. Good afternoon, Ms. Belmonte. How are you? A. I'm good. How are you? Q. I'm Jerry Ballarotto. We've met before. You know I represent Ty Tucker, A. Yes. Q. Along with Kara Higgins. I'm going to ask you some questions and I want you to take your time and answer them. Go slow. If you need some time to do whatever it is, A. Okay. Q. To be safe or comfortable, you let us know that. A. Okay. Q. I'm going to go very slow. A. Okay. You can hear me, right? So I don't have to scream? Q. I'm sorry? A. You can hear me good so I don't have to scream? Q. I can hear you as long as you speak into the microphone. A. Okay. Q. There you go. A. Okay. Q. All right. So one of the things you testified to earlier was about a lineup. Is that correct? A. About? Q. A photo lineup. A. Yes, sir. Q. Or photo array? A. Yes, sir. Q. And in that photo array you identified a photograph, correct? A. Yes. Q. And that was the photograph of Rory Wilson, correct? A. Yes. Q. And I believe you wrote 100% next to it? A. Yes. Q. Because you were sure that he was the person that he had pushed a knife to your neck. A. Yes. Q. At the treehouse? A. Yes. Q. Were you ever shown a photo array that contained a photograph of Travis Johnson? A. No, sir. Q. Were you ever shown a photo array? A. Excuse me. Q. Okay. Were you ever shown a photo array that contained a photograph of Ty Tucker? A. No, sir. Q. Would you like some water? A. I have some. Thank you. Off the record discussion. Q. Okay. You were asked on direct about the structure and the layout of the tree house. Is that correct? A. Yes, sir. Q. And you lived on the top floor of the tree house. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. And that's where this robbery took place? A. Yes, sir. Q. After the robbery, did there come a time when Detective Pitcher took you back to the treehouse? A. Yes. But can I ask you a question real quick? Because I want to make sure I'm understanding. What does direct mean? Like, you said I was asked on direct. Q. Oh, okay. A. By Christine? Q. There were some questions about A. But that's what direct means, by, from Christine, right? Q. Oh, yeah. That's correct. A. Oh, okay. Q. Yes, I'm sorry. A. That's okay. I thought that's what it was. I just wanted to make sure. Q. Yes, yes. That's the person over my shoulder. A. Yes, direct. Okay. Q. Okay. So was there a time when after the robbery took place that Detective Pitcher brought you back to the treehouse? A. Yes, sir. Q. And when you were back to the treehouse, did you notice something different about the treehouse that wasn't there before? A. No. Q. Well, Did you notice that there had been some writing that was placed on the walls? A. That was not that day. Q. That was not that day you went back? A. No, it was not that day. It was about a week later when I went back because I was going to continue to live there. Q. I see, okay. A. Too scary. Q. Okay. So you went back there alone? A. No. I went back with my friend Armando Spebitz, phonetic. Q. Okay. A. And Melissa Downs was there. I don't know, I don't believe I went with her. I believe she showed up. Q. Okay. And so what did you notice that was different? A. All the writing on Anathea Clay's bedroom walls and door. Among Matthew not being there, that was different. Q. Was there writing on the walls? A. Yes. Q. Where was that? A. It started on the inside door and went, I believe, completely around the room. Defendant Tucker's composite exhibit 1 was marked. Q. Okay. I'm going to show you what's marked. A. Okay. Q. As exhibit, defense exhibit Tucker 1. A. Okay. Why is it all painted over? Q. Do those pictures accurately represent what you saw in that building that day? A. No, not this. Q. Okay. Okay. So let's set that aside. A. Okay. Q. What about the others? A. Where does it say, woke up this morning with double murder on my mind? Ms. Poist, objection, reading an item, the witness, oh, no. I was asking where it said, woke up this morning with double murder on my mind. Q. Okay. Just set the one aside that you say wasn't the way you saw it. A. Okay. Q. And just look at them and tell me whether they accurately depict what you saw when you went back. A. Yes. Q. Okay. Now, there's writing on the wall, correct? A. Yes. Q. All right. Now, let's go back to that first one that you said didn't look the way you saw it that day. A. Uh-huh. Q. Now, does part of it look the way you saw it and part of it not the way you saw it? A. This looks like the way I saw it, and this is not the way I saw it. Q. You didn't, neither of those were there? A. This was. Q. Oh, that was, okay. A. The small red writing. Q. Gotcha. A. Looks red. Q. All right. A. Black. I don't know. It looks red in the picture. And I don't remember the color. This was not here. Q. All right. That was painted over. Do you know anything about how that happened? A. It looks like it was painted over. I mean, there had been writing all the way down. Ms. Poist, the state's just going to lodge an objection because this item is not in evidence and it's being displayed to the videographer. The witness, oh, should I not have done that? Mr. Ballarotto, we move all of it into evidence at this time. The witness, I'm sorry. You didn't tell me. I was trying to show you. Mr. Ballarotto, we'll move it in. Ms. Poist, I object to them being moved into evidence. Improper foundation, the state's case, hearsay. Mr. Ballarotto, well, then we'd ask that we be allowed to ask the questions and then the witness, I'm sorry. Mr. Ballarotto, move them in at the end of the case. Ms. Poist, you can ask questions about them. The state has objected to their admissibility during cross-examination in the state's case, and it's hearsay, and there hasn't been a sufficient foundation. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. We'll go on. Okay. By Mr. Ballarotto, Q. Do you remember do you remember anything that you read on the walls? Put them aside. Do you remember? A. That's what I'm doing right now. Q. Okay. What did you read that was on the walls? Ms. Poist. Objection. Hearsay. Mr. Ballarotto, we're not putting it in for the truth of the matter. Answer the question. A. Matt, you stupid hard-headed stubborn son of a bitch, I warned you this was gonna happen. Some other things. And then, on the wall, like, from the door to the wall, it says, I woke up this morning with double murder on my mind. That's all I can, and at one point somewhere in there, it said, it should have been her, not you. Q. Okay. A. I can't remember. The rest of it's all just, Q. Did you ever, A. A bunch of babble. Q. Did you determine who wrote that? A. I don't know for sure, no. Q. You don't know for sure? A. No. Q. Did you recognize the handwriting? A. No. Q. Okay. You were asked earlier about a crystal dinclocker? A. Dinclocker. Q. And Melissa Downs? A. Uh-huh. Q. Did they ever tell you that Anethea Clay set up this robbery? Ms. Poist. Objection. Hearsay. Mr. Ballarotto, answer the question. Ms. Poist. Beyond the scope of cross, or, are direct. A. No. Not set up the robbery, no. Q. I'm sorry? A. Not that day, not that, Crystal. I mean, yes, Crystal and Melissa both had approached me prior and said April was going to have someone come up and beat me up and rob me. But I didn't talk to them after the robbery. Mr. Ballarotto, what was the objection? Hearsay and what else? Ms. Poist. Hearsay, beyond the scope of direct. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. All right. The court reporter, is there any way you can take your mask off when you object? I'm just having trouble, the witness, and I don't care if anybody has theirs off, honestly, because you guys are far enough away from me. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. The court reporter, or just pull it down when you object. Thanks. By Mr. Ballarotto, Q. By the way, that writing that was on the wall, you didn't write any of that, did you? A. No, sir. I write about this little. I have very little handwriting. Q. Okay. Now, you testified that you, and I can tell your throat, and did you bleed a lot? A. Honestly, I don't know. Q. Did you find blood on the bed? A. There was blood all over my blanket, yeah. Q. There was blood all over your blanket? A. The next morning when I went back, yeah. Q. Did you point that out to the police? A. Yes. I wondered why they didn't take the blanket as evidence but, Q. It wasn't taken in evidence? A. Only because I watch a lot of forensic files. Q. It was not taken into evidence? A. No, sir. Q. Okay. A. Which I thought was weird. Q. Okay. I'd like to ask you a couple of questions about the robbery that took place on November 17, 2017, correct? A. Yes, sir. Q. You said, if I'm not mistaken, that the person you identified as Rory came in, jumped on you, put a knife to your throat and was yelling at you, give me the money, or give me whatever, give me the drugs? A. Yes. Yes, sir. Q. Is that accurate? A. He didn't say drugs. He didn't say drugs. Q. He just said money? A. Give me the money or give me your purse or I'm going to kill you. Q. What hand did he have the knife in? A. The left. Q. You're sure? A. Yes, because I went this way to block it and he was punching me with his right. Q. Now, you testified about the second man that came in, right? A. Yes. Q. You testified that you saw him from the side with, A. No. I saw his back, but I only saw from half of my side. Q. Okay. A. Like, if I got, like, this much of a view of him, Q. Uh-huh. A. Because Rory was on top of me, but I saw the second person from the back. Q. Okay. A. But only from my side. Q. That's when, A. Does that make sense? Q. Rory was on top of you, correct? A. Yes. Q. Okay. A. Yes. Q. You also testified that later, Rory got off you and you saw that the second man was on Roger. A. No. I was told later that the second man was on Roger. Q. Oh, you never saw the second man on Roger? A. No. I saw the second man with my backpack and I saw him with a billy club, but I couldn't see Roger because Detroit was blocking my view. Q. Okay. All right. So you saw the second man in the beginning when Rory was on top of you, and you saw what you described, correct? A. Not right in the beginning but during the tussle. Q. Okay. And then, after Rory got off of you, you saw the second man again and you saw him with a billy club? A. Just from, like, the side of me. Q. Okay. But this was when Rory was not on you any longer. Is that correct? A. No. He was still on me. Q. Okay. A. But I got tussled around where I could see the back of the man from, like, the half of a side of me. Q. Okay. So how many times is that day you saw this man? A. 2.5. Does that make sense? Q. Yeah. 2.5 times. This was a short period of time, correct? A. Yeah. Because one time, I only saw the half of him. The other one, I just caught a brief glimpse as he was coming back up to go to Roger. But, once again, Rory was in my view, and he was behind Matthew. Q. Did you draw any conclusions about the size or the stature? A. He was, Q. Or the stance of that man? A. He was smaller than Rory. Q. Was smaller than Rory? A. Yes. Q. Was he much smaller than Rory? A. To me, he was shorter and, like, skinnier framed. Q. Thinner? A. Yeah, like not as, just not as big, not as husky. Q. His shoulders weren't as wide, is that what you're saying? A. Yes. That's a way to describe it, yes. Q. All right. A. And shorter. Q. And shorter? A. Yes. Q. Okay. And you didn't recognize that stance or that shape, body shape? A. No, sir. Q. Of that person. Is that correct? A. No, sir. Q. You also testified that at some point, you heard that man say, I think we killed him? A. I think we killed him. Ms. Poist, object to the interpretation. Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry? Ms. Poist, she said she didn't know who said that statement. She just heard that statement. Mr. Ballarotto, okay. No, I don't think that's what she said, but I'll clear it up. Q. You said that there were only 2 strangers in your apartment at this time. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. And the other person, A. As much as I can identify, yes. 2. Q. 2. And the only other person was Roger? A. Upstairs with me, yes. Q. You testified that you know that it wasn't Rory that said, I think we killed him, A. Exactly. Q. Correct? A. Yes, correct. Q. So, And were there any other voices that were there to say, I think we killed him? A. The one at the bottom of the stairs. The bottom of the top flight of stairs. Q. Right. That's the second man? A. Yes. Q. That's the man you identified as the unknown man? A. Yes. Q. Okay. All right. So you had 2.5 times to see this person and you heard his voice? A. Yes. Q. All right. You testified that you were sure that the person who held that knife to your throat was Rory? A. Yes. Did I? Oh, testified. You mean today? Q. Yes, today. A. Okay. Because I was going to say, I never testified before. So you had me confused. Sorry. Q. Okay. A. Yes. 100% sure that it was Rory. Q. Okay. And that he wore a mask? A. Yes. Q. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. So you couldn't see his face, is that right? A. I saw this much of it. Q. All right. You didn't see enough of his face to identify his face? A. No, sir. Q. Okay. So, but you heard his voice? A. Yes. Q. And you recognized his voice? A. Yes. Q. I believe you may have one time said that he had a very deep voice. Is that right? A. He's got a gravely, deep voice. Q. And, A. Not so much deep as just rumbly, like. Q. But you recognized that voice, correct? A. Yes, sir. Q. And that's because you testified today that he had been at the tree house 5 or 6 times in the past? A. Yes. Q. At least, right? A. Approximately. I approximately come across him 5 or 6 times. Q. Okay. And you've spoken to him about 5 or 6 times? A. Yes. Q. Okay. So you recognized his voice? A. Yes. Q. You also described his size, okay. A. Yes. Q. And I think at one point you described how he stood with his arms out because he's so big? A. Yeah, he's big. Q. Right. A. Big. Q. So is it fair to say that you not only identified his voice but you identified his size and his stature? A. I knew who he was before he was coming at me. Q. Okay. A. Even in the dark. Q. Okay. But you also, in addition to his voice, is it fair to say you recognized his body size, his shape? A. Yes. Q. His stature? A. Yes. Q. The way he stood? A. Yes. The way he moves? Yes. Q. Is that fair to say? A. Yes. Q. Okay. And you also recognize the clothes that he was wearing? A. Yes. Q. Including these shoe-like boots? A. Yeah. Q. Is that right? A. Yes, sir. Q. How you describe them? A. Yes. Q. And that's because you saw him in the treehouse earlier that day? A. Yes, sir. Q. And he was wearing the same clothes? A. Yes, sir. Q. Now, when he was in the treehouse earlier that day, he was with a man. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. And you described him as a white man? A. Yes. Q. Okay. Had you ever seen that man before? A. No, sir. Q. That man was not Ty Tucker? A. No, it was not Tyrone, correct. Q. You're absolutely sure, right? A. Yes. 100%. Q. Because you know Ty Tucker? A. Yes. Q. You knew Ty Tucker? A. Yes. Q. Okay. So, A. Although I didn't know his name at that point. Q. Okay. A. I mean, I had been introduced but I didn't even remember his name. Q. You know it now? A. Yes, yes. Q. And it was not Ty? A. No, sir. Q. Okay. And you described that man as a smaller man? A. Yes. Q. Was he, I mean, how? A. Well, it's kind of hard to say. He was standing one step down behind Rory but he was not as big as Detroit. Reddish hair. Q. Uh-huh. A. Kind of, I know he had on a red shirt. Kind of preppy looking, in a sense. Q. Okay. A. No facial hair. Q. I'm sorry? A. No facial hair. Q. No facial hair. And now, he wasn't wearing a mask by any chance? A. No, this is in the daytime. Q. This is earlier, right? A. Yes, sir. Q. So you got to see his face? A. Yes. Q. Okay. Now, you didn't speak to him, though, then, did you? A. The other guy? Q. Yeah, the other guy. A. No, sir. Q. You did not speak to the other, so you didn't hear his voice? A. No, sir. Q. At that time, correct? A. I can't say that I've ever heard his voice. Q. Okay. A. That other person. Q. All right. A. That was with Rory earlier. Q. Now, since that time, did you have the opportunity to see other things that helped you identify who these individuals might be? A. Only person I ever identified was Rory. Q. Okay. For example, did you see A. Well, Q. Go ahead. A. No, I'm getting confused. I was going to say except Tyrone, but I'm not identifying Tyrone except for him not being there. So I think, Ms. Poist, objection, not responsive to a question. The witness, I just kind of threw you off. Sorry. Q. I asked you about identifying somebody and I think you said that you thought the only person you identified was, A. Was Tyrone. Q. Rory, correct? A. Rory, yes. Q. Okay. Rory. All right, let's, A. I'm getting confused. Detroit as Rory Wilson. Q. And then you corrected yourself in that you said that you did also identify the second person as not being Ty Tucker? A. As not being Tyrone. Q. Right. A. Yes. Q. You said that on a number of occasions, correct? A. Yes. Q. That you're absolutely, Ms. Poist, not in evidence. Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry? I'm sorry? Ms. Poist, I'm objecting to the fact that you're saying that she's made that particular statement on a number of other occasions. Mr. Ballarotto, well, this is cross-examination. The witness, I have, haven't I? Mr. Ballarotto, all right. By Mr. Ballarotto, Q. Have you ever made that statement on other occasions? A. I believe so, yes. Ms. Poist, objection, relevance. The witness, because I, Ms. Poist, improper bolstering. Mr. Ballarotto, improper what? Mr. Ballarotto, bolstering credibility of the witness. Q. Have you ever said that statement before? Yes or no? A. That I believe it's not Tyrone. Q. Yes. A. Yes. Q. Okay. Were you ever able to make any correlation between anything you saw, like pictures in the newspaper, or photos from CVS, or videos that were shown you with regard to the other man that was in apartment? Ms. Poist, objection, compound question. Mr. Ballarotto, you can answer. By Mr. Ballarotto, Q. Did any of those things have any effect on your ability to identify the person who, A. Okay. Q. Was in the apartment, A. Can I ask, Q. That was not Ty? A. Can I ask you a question first? Q. Yes. A. If you say object, I can still answer? Q. You can answer the questions, yes. A. Okay. Q. All right. A. I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? Q. All right. A. Sorry. Q. I'm now talking about the second man, A. The second person. Q. Who was in the apartment, A. Uh-huh. Q. That you said definitely was not Ty. A. Yes. Q. All right. That man. Did you ever, since all this happened and as time has progressed, did you ever see other things, either the newspaper or YouTube or videos or whatever, anything that, A. Q. Hold on. Let me finish. That caused you to rethink, identify who that second man was? A. I saw a picture on a video called Conk Corruption 2. Q. You saw what now? Ms. Poist, objection, an item not in evidence. Mr. Ballarotto, she's telling about something that she saw. She's not, it's not in evidence. It doesn't need to be in evidence. By Mr. Ballarotto, Q. Answer the question. Go ahead. A. Okay. I saw, Q. Tell us what you saw. A. I saw a picture on this video, it's called Conk Corruption 2. Q. Uh-huh. A. There's a picture of a man out in front of the tree house walking in a hoodie. Q. Okay. So, A. That looks like the man. It looks like the same hoodie from the man that I saw upstairs. Q. Okay. Anything else that you saw that helped you identify? Did you ever see an interview of Travis? A. Yes. Q. Okay. Did that have any effect on your ability to identify the second man? A. No. Q. Okay. All right. A. Because I never identified the second man. Q. When you heard the interview of Travis, you heard the interview of Travis, right? A. Briefly. Q. Briefly. Did that have any effect on your ability to identify the voice of the second man that you heard that night? A. What is that? Speculation. To me, Q. I don't want you to speculate. A. To me, it sounds like it could have been, but I don't think that's the kind of answer. Q. You don't know? A. Yeah. Q. Okay. All right. All right. Now, did you know Tyrone, is that how you call him, Tyrone? How do you refer to him? A. Pretty much, hey, you. Q. Okay. A. I was given his name one time but then I didn't see him enough after that. Q. Okay. Well, I'm going to call him Ty Tucker. Is that, A. Okay. Yes. Q. So now we know who we're talking about. A. Tyrone, sure, yeah. Q. Prior to November 17th, the date of the robbery, had you met Ty Tucker? A. Yes. Q. Do you remember about how many times you met him or where you met him? A. Probably about 5 or 6. I met him originally at Burger King. Q. Burger King, uh-huh. Okay. And about how many times have you been in his presence prior to that date? A. Prior to meeting him at Burger King? Q. No, no. Prior to the date of the robbery. A. I saw him once on the street. Just, like, oh hello. I think I saw him again at Burger King. He had been at the tree house one time. Q. Okay. So you saw him, A. Downstairs. Q. 4 or 5 times. Is that correct? A. Yes, yeah. Q. And you talked to him, you, A. Yes. Q. Heard his voice? A. Yes. Q. Okay. Was the voice you heard that said, I think we killed him, was that Ty Tucker's voice? A. No. Q. How sure are you? A. I'm going to say 100% sure. Q. Huh? A. 100% sure. Q. You're 100% sure? A. Tyrone has a different voice. Q. It was a different voice? A. Yeah. He's got a rough voice too, like a gravely, like a smoker's, whatever, voice. Q. Okay. Now, what about the body type? You said you've seen Ty on a number of occasions. What about what you were able to learn about the man who was the second person in the robbery and his body shape, his size, his demeanor compared to Ty's? A. Tyrone seemed bigger than the person that I saw. Q. I'm sorry? A. Tyrone seems bigger than the person that I saw. Q. So is it fair, A. Not as big as Rory? Q. I'm sorry? A. Not as big as Rory. Q. Okay. A. But, Q. Is it fair to say that the person who was the second man in the robbery did not have the same body size, style and shape as Ty Tucker? A. Correct. Q. All right. Following the robbery, did there come a time when you saw Ty Tucker shortly after the robbery? A. Yes. Q. When was that? A. I believe it was 3 or 4 days later. Q. It was when? A. I believe it was 3 or 4 days later. Q. 3 or 4 days later? A. I'm not exactly sure. Q. Okay. But it was shortly thereafter? A. Yes, yes. Q. And that, A. It was, Detroit had been arrested but Tyrone hadn't. Q. It was what? A. Detroit had been arrested but Tyrone hadn't. Q. Oh, okay. All right. And that was at the McDonald's? A. Yeah. We loved McDonald's. Q. How did that happen? Did you accidentally meet him there? A. Accidentally, yeah. Q. Okay. So he was there? A. He was sitting in back and I walked in and, Q. He was by himself? A. Yes. Q. Okay. And you walked in and did you approach him or did he approach you? A. Neither one of us approached each other, really. He just kind of, I was looking for a table and I kind of said, hey, how are you? Q. You said that? A. Yeah. And he's, Q. And did you sit with him at the table? A. No. We went outside because I was crying. Q. You were crying? A. Yeah. Q. Because you said you, A. Well, because he had said that he had been dragged, mispoised, objection, calls for hearsay. Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry? Mispoised, objection, hearsay. Q. Go ahead and answer. A. Go ahead? Q. You can answer, yes. A. He had said he had been down at the police station all night because of Rory. Q. Okay. A. I was like, what? Because I had no idea they all stayed in the same place or, Q. A. Whatever that deal was. Q. A. And, Q. You were surprised to hear that? A. Oh, yeah. Q. Okay. A. Yeah. Q. So you, how long were you with him that time? A. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. Q. 15 or 20 minutes? And you were upset? A. Oh, yeah. Q. And you were crying? A. Oh, I probably got his shoulder full of snot and I was crying so hard. Q. You cried on his shoulder? A. Yes. Yes, I was. Q. Okay. So this was shortly after the robbery while the incident was fresh? A. Yes. Q. Your observations were fresh and, A. Yes. Q. What you heard was fresh. A. Yes. Q. At that time when you saw Ty, did you ever suspect or think for a minute that he was the second guy in the, A. No, sir. Q. And as time has progressed, have you become more or less sure that it wasn't Ty? A. For a little bit, I don't know if I'm allowed to say this. For a little bit, Matt Pitcher had me thinking that it was him, but I've always questioned Matt Pitcher because I never believed it was Tyrone. Q. Okay. Well, is it fair to say that you had conversations with Matt Pitcher? A. Yes. Q. Okay. A. Plenty. Q. And Matt Pitcher told you that Ty was involved? Ms. Poist, objection, hearsay. Mr. Ballarotto, you can answer. A. Every time I talked to Matt Pitcher and questioned Tyrone involvement, Matt Pitcher said yes. Q. And when he told you Ty was involved, did you say, well, are you sure that it's Ty? A. Yes, yes. Plenty of times. Q. Plenty of times you said, A. I said those words, are you sure, are you absolutely sure, because I just don't understand it, I don't see it. Q. And you said that because you didn't think he was involved? A. Exactly. Q. But he had been arrested anyway. Is that correct? A. Yes. Q. And, A. Well, not the first time that I spoke with Matt Pitcher about that. Q. Right. Okay. A. Or maybe, wait, no. Let me correct that. No, because at that point, I didn't know that that was Tyrone. So, yes, he would have had to have been arrested. Sorry. Q. All right. A. Sorry. Q. And you had this conversation with Detective Pitcher on a number of occasions? A. Yes, sir. Q. How many, about? A. Probably at least, anywhere between 5 and 10. Q. Anywhere between 5 and 10 times? A. Yes. Q. You told him that you thought that they were wrong. A. Yes. Q. Concluding that Mr. Tucker was involved? A. Yes. And are you sure and stuff like that? Yes. Q. And what was their response? What was this detective's, Ms. Poist, objection, calls for hearsay. Mr. Ballarotto, go ahead, you can answer. What was, Ms. Poist, outside the scope of direct? Mr. Ballarotto, I'm sorry? Ms. Poist, outside the scope of direct. Mr. Ballarotto, I just asked a number of questions in that area and now you're objecting. You didn't object to the first 4 questions in this area. Ms. Poist, I objected to relevance. Mr. Ballarotto, now you're objecting. Ms. Poist, and I'm objecting now, yes. The witness, so, do I answer or not? Mr. Ballaroto, okay. The witness, okay. Mr. Ballaroto, hang on. By Mr. Ballaroto, Q. Now, you were interviewed shortly after the incident by the police. Is that correct? Shortly after the incident you were asked some question about, A. That night? Q. That night, yeah. A. And the next day? Q. Right, okay. A. Yes. Q. And then there was a time later when you participated in a deposition May of 2019. Do you remember that? A. With Christine? Q. May of, A. I mean, no, not Christine. I'm sorry. Colleen? Q. Yeah, Colleen was there. Mr. Ballaroto, was it Colleen or Ms. Poist? I believe it was Mr. Winter. The witness, oh, yes, yes. Because Colleen was, I'm sorry, yes. Mr. Winter. By Mr. Ballaroto, Q. And you were asked some questions by, A. Yes. I had originally spoken with Colleen. That's what had me confused. Q. At that time, had you had these conversations that you described with Detective Pitcher prior to that deposition? A. Yes. Q. Okay. All right. We'll get back to that. A. Yes, because that's when I was getting into being told that it was Tyrone. It was Tyrone. Q. Let me ask you this. How do you feel about these men that robbed you and did this to you? Ms. Poist, objection, relevance. Mr. Ballaroto, answer the question. A. Detroit makes me sick, makes me want to vomit. I don't want to be in the same room with him. I fought for that. I don't want to look at him. I don't want to smell him. I don't have much to say about, what is your client's name? Travis, because I don't know anything about him. Q. Is it fair to say that you're very angry and want to see the individuals that did this be punished? Is that fair to say? A. I can't say I'm angry like I hold hatred, but I'm disgusted and they deserve to be punished. Q. Well, my question is there any reason to believe that if you, for a minute, thought Ty Tucker was involved that you would lie and say that, oh, no, he wasn't involved? A. Absolutely not. He could rot in hell just like I hope Detroit does. Sorry. Q. If he was involved? A. If he was involved, yeah. Q. But you know, 100%, that he wasn't? A. Yes. If that's not speculation. Mr. Ballaroto, I have nothing further. Your cross, direct, redirect. Do you want us to move? Do you want us to move? Ms. Poist, I think I can speak loud enough. Mr. Ballaroto, okay. The witness, can you hear me, Christine? So I don't, Ms. Poist, I can hear you. The witness, okay. Ms. Poist, thank you. The witness, no, thank me. I don't have to yell. I'm okay. Ms. Poist, all right. The witness, thank you. I might as well take a sip of water real quick. Redirect examination, by Ms. Poist, Q. Now, you indicated on cross that you saw the second man about 2.5 times. A. Cross means them guys, right? Q. Correct. A. Jerry and Kara. Okay. Yes. Q. And that was mostly while you were being attacked, punched, cut by Detroit, Rory Wilson? A. Not unless, it was all about the same amount of time. It was all very briefly, all 3 times. Q. And that you saw that individual go downstairs? A. Yes. Q. And that Rory went down a second after that person? A. Well, that individual came back up the stairs. He went down once and he came back up while Rory was still upstairs. Then they both went down. Q. When did the attack on Matthew take place? A. After the first one went, The other one went down the first time. Q. All right. So I just want to make sure I understand. So you're saying that the other person who's not Detroit, A. Yes. Q. Went downstairs, A. Yes, then came, Q. And then he came back up? A. Back up and went after Roger. Q. Okay. A. And then he was on the platform was the last time I saw him. On the platform after Matthew had come up. I know it's confusing, but I almost think that other person might have been tucked in, like, as Matt was coming up and he came up behind him. Q. All right. And do you see the person who made the statement, I think we killed him? A. No, I did not see that. I just heard it. Q. So you don't know if it's the second male or if it was even a third person? A. No. Mr. Ballarotto, objection. Objection, that's not what she said. She never said, the witness, no. I'm sorry. You didn't hear me? No, no. It was, I don't know anything about a third person. Q. Can you say with certainty that it's the second person who said, I think we killed him? A. No. Q. So it could have been the second person that you had seen before? A. Yes. Q. Or it could have possibly have been someone else? A. Correct. Q. Now, you indicated that you were familiar with Tyrone at the time of this incident. A. Yes. Q. Talking about Mr. Tucker. A. Yes. Q. And that you had met him between 5, 6 times. A. Yes, approximately. Q. And that you were familiar with his voice? A. Yes. Q. And that you're 100% sure that this voice that you heard is not, A. Was not Tyrone's. Q. His voice? A. Correct. Q. Do you know if the person was manipulating their voice? A. It didn't sound like it, no. Q. And you said that the body type seemed different than the person you saw. Why is that? A. You're not making sense. The body type and the different, than, Q. Why is Tyrone Tucker's body type, A. Okay. That, Q. Different than the second person that you saw upstairs? A. Tyrone is broader. Q. How would you describe Tyrone Tucker's build? A. Not as big as Rory's, but not as little as mine. Just broad. Broad-shouldered. But not as big as Rory. And he seems more stockier than the person that I can't identify. Q. What do you mean by stockier than the person you can't? A. Just more weight. You know, like, heavier, stockier. Not fat, but more weight. On Tyrone than the person I can't identify, to make that clear. Q. And if you had to guess as to the height and weight of Mr. Tucker, what would you guess? Mr. Ballarotto, objection, Your Honor. A. I am no good at that. Mr. Ballarotto, objection, object. The witness, all I can tell you is smaller than Detroit. Q. Now, after this occurred, had you been in contact with Mr. Tucker or his wife, Ms. Genai? A. Not Mr. Tucker but Lauren, yes. We Facebook. Q. And did you know her prior to this incident? A. No, ma'am. Q. Back in November? A. No. Q. So how is it that it came to be that you would communicate with her? A. Just because I believe in Tyrone's innocence. Q. How frequently do you speak with her? A. I don't know. Sometimes it will be 20 messages back and forth a day, and then there will be times where we don't Facebook at all. I don't actually speak with her. It's Facebook and Messenger, which I did with approval. Q. Have you discussed the case with her? A. Yes. Well, texting. I mean, not discussing. I don't know if I have to keep elaborating that. Q. Have those discussions influenced your opinion as to what happened? A. No. Q. In this case? A. No. As a matter of fact, there was a time or two where I asked a question and she told me she was afraid to answer and wouldn't answer because she didn't want anything, and I said, okay, because I don't want anything to mess anything up, either. Q. Now, you had testified before that there were some things that you had seen after this occurred, something about a conch corruption. A. Yes. Q. Website? A. Yes. Q. Was that on a website related to Mr. Tucker and Ms. Genai? A. On the Free Franklin Tucker. I believe it came up under that. I'm not 100% sure, but it comes up as conch corruption. I don't think it's Lauren. No, I know it's not Lauren. It came up under the lady, that cop lady that you fired. Do we know her name? The Penny lady. Phillips, phonetic. Yes, it comes up under where they have her on YouTube. Q. Under Free Franklin Tuckers. A. No. Q. YouTube? A. Under that Penny Phelps video led me to that. Q. Have you been to the Free Franklin Tucker? A. Yes. Q. YouTube page? A. Yes. Q. And have you watched the videos on it? A. I've watched some. Q. And have you been to the Free Franklin Tucker webpage? A. It's the same thing, right? Q. Well, YouTube page versus a web page. A. Oh, the web page. Q. Or the website. A. Yes. Q. And have you been to the Free Franklin Tucker Facebook page? A. I'm going to say yes because, to me, that's all the same thing. The web page versus the Facebook page is the same thing, correct? Q. And you're saying that having watched those videos or having read anything on there has not influenced your decision at all? A. No, it's only reiterated what I had always thought. Ms. Poist, one moment. Q. Now, you're saying that this video in which you saw this person that was wearing clothes that was similar to the person that attacked you, the second person, that was a video that had been posted pertaining to this particular case? A. Repeat that. I don't understand. Q. So the video that you saw, A. Which video? Q. With a person that you said might have been the second person, A. Uh-huh. Q. That was a video pertaining to this particular case? A. Yes. It's not actually a video. It's a still picture that is right as the video comes on. It's a black and white picture right at the very beginning. Ms. Poist, the state has no other questions. The witness, does that mean we're done? The videographer, today is Monday, September 28, 2020. The time is 1:54 p.m. We are going off the record. The witness, does that mean we're done? Mr. Ballarotto, almost. The witness, oh, okay. Off the record discussion. Ms. Poist, you can do this as a read. Deposition concluded at 1:55 p.m. Certificate of Oath, State of Florida, County of Monroe, I, Suzanne F.X., Certified Verbatim Reporter, Florida Professional Reporter, Notary Public, State of Florida, certify that Paula Belmonte personally appeared before me on the 28th day of September, 2020, and was duly sworn. Signed this 9th day of October, 2020. Suzanne F.X., CVRM, FPR Notary Public, State of Florida Commission No. GG 115023 Commission expires, July 27, 2021 Certificate of Reporter, State of Florida, County of Monroe, I, Suzanne X., Certified Verbatim Reporter and Florida Professional Reporter, certify that I was authorized to and did report the deposition of Paula Belmonte, pages 1 through 119. That the review of the transcript was not waived. and that the transcript is a true record. I further certify that I am not a relative, employee, attorney, or counsel of any of the parties, nor am I a relative or employee of any of the parties' attorneys or counsel connected with the action, nor am I financially interested in the action. Dated this 8th day of October, 2020. Suzanne X., CVRM, FPR Certified Verbatim Reporter Florida Professional Reporter Witness Notification Letter, October 8, 2020 Paula Belmonte CO Christine Poist, ASA 530 Whitehead Street, Suite 301 Key West, Florida, 33040 C Poist at ksio.org RE, State of Florida. Versus John Johnson, et al. Deposition taken September 28, 2020 U.S. Legal Support Job number 2,253,789. The transcript of the above referenced proceeding has been prepared and is being provided to you for your review. We respectfully request that you complete your review within 30 days and return the errata sheet to our office. Sincerely, Suzanne X., CVRM, FPR U.S. Legal Support, Incorporated. 1 Southeast 3rd Avenue, Suite 1250 Miami, Florida, 33131-373-8404 CC via transcript, Christine Poist, Esquire Seth Levy, Esquire Anna Isabel Gomez Malata, Esquire Kara Higgins, Esquire Jerome A. Ballaroto, Esquire errata sheet, do not write on. The transcript interchanges on this page, in RE, State of Florida versus John Johnson, et al. Paula Belmonte September 28, 2020 U.S. Legal Support Job number 2,253,789 Page No. Line No. Change reason under penalties of perjury. I declare that I have read the foregoing document and that the facts stated in it are true. Date Paula Belmonte.